Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
I'm your host, Chris Santamassimo from OGC Solutions, and we power the Think Factory podcast. And I'm happy to welcome Mike Porter, who's the president of PMC Content Services, to the podcast. Mike and I met at the National Postal Forum some weeks back. So, Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, good to be with you again, Chris.
Oh, this is great, and I'm so glad that you wanted to come aboard and talk a little bit about not only what PMC Content Services does, but also share some of the many industry observations that you've come across. So let's start with that. Tell folks about yourself and what PMC does, and then I think the rest will fall into line. So take it away.
Sure. Well, I've been in the document industry for most of my career, 40 plus years, doing all kinds of different kinds of jobs in transactional and direct mail and printing and mailing primarily, and was in the service bureau business for over 20 years, and so I've got a lot of experience in that area and know a lot of people in that industry, and what we'll do with PMC Content Services is we work with companies that are in that space exclusively. We work with those kinds of companies, usually small to medium-sized organizations or companies that have fairly small marketing organizations within their companies, and we help them to not only create informational content but develop a strategy about how to use it, help them to promote that, so we get eyes on that content, and it can take a variety of different forms. I mean, every customer is different. We make a plan that schedules out for an entire year what we're going to do, so we are able to take a look at the content they have and see if they have gaps where we need to fill in. Maybe they've got a product that they have kind of neglected to cover, or a vertical industry that they would be able to penetrate a little bit more if they had some more content there, things like that, and put together a year-long strategy for that, suggest topics to cover, and then we create that, and then we do campaigns on social media to drive traffic to the websites where people can read that content. And besides written content, we do videos and some other things as well. But that's sort of what the company does today, and it seems to be filling a niche for those companies that they just don't have the time to do that on a consistent basis. And consistency is really important for you to keep publishing. It helps you with your SEO. It helps people stay engaged. It helps you stay top of mind, because most of my customers, they're selling software or hardware. People don't buy that every day. So it's a long sales cycle. They need to stay in touch with their customers so that they know what's going on, and they also want to develop a reputation for thought leadership, so that they're dealing with a company that knows what's going on in the industry and knows what the challenges that their customers are having.
Yeah, I would agree. And just like any relationship that happens over time, it's really a relationship-based approach, because the customers of your clients really are looking for companies that they can rely on, especially when things aren't going well. And whether you're buying equipment or whether you're buying something that people might view as a commodity like paper, that relationship and that trust factor is still important, right? So some of the content that you're helping to draft, it's not like you're just ghostwriting. I don't think you're actually taking the voice of your client so that voice can project to the customer base or the potential customer base.
Yeah, we do that. It is sort of ghostwriting because my name's not on it.
Right. I just didn't mean
on their own, but
right. You're not just generating generic stuff for the sense of, or for the point of just being out there. It's real well thought of stuff that really just amplifies the voice of your client, I think, from what I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, because while it's a ghost written piece, I mean, it's got to really speak to, speak in the voice of the client. And I think that's hard sometimes, frankly, but you've done it so well for so long that you can kind of get inside the heads of your clients, so to speak, to, portray the right information, or project the right image, as well as convey the right information.
Exactly. And there are differences. There's some companies that are more very structured, business-like sort of an approach, and that's the kind of voice that they want to use. And others are more friendly, conversational types, and some are even a little whimsical at times. So we have to gauge the way that we create that content based upon that voice, so it's consistent across their platforms, and it's in line with what their company culture is really all about.
Yeah. In terms of thought leadership, Mike, you're really at the forefront, I think, trying to create content that addresses some of the industry issues that players face. So I think you're probably right in the trenches there, to use a military analogy, seeing that, from firsthand, what are those issues? Let's talk about some of the issues that really are on the tips of the tongues of the people that are reading some of your content. What are they talking about?
Yeah. It's interesting. You chose the term "in the trenches," which is actually, I don't think you knew this. That's the name of my column in Mailing Systems Technology that I've been writing for since 2010.
So you had such an impression on me; it stuck in my brain like that. I didn't even realize it was yours.
So in that publication nationally, that's all about mail. So we talk about operational excellence and efficiencies and what's going on with the Postal Service and all kinds of topics related to that particular industry. Most of the readers there are either mail service providers, or they are in-plant operations and large corporations that are doing mail. And we talk about mostly outbound mail, sometimes inbound mail, but people are really interested today in kind of the future of mail. That when I started in the business years and years and years ago, mail was one of the few channels that you could use to communicate with your customers. There was the phone, and there was the yellow pages and, traditional advertising kind of things. But as far as one-to-one communication, mail was kind of it. That's not the way it is anymore. Of course, we've got lots of different ways that we can communicate with customers, with social media or text messaging or emails, and banner ads, all kinds of things that you can do to get your message across to your customers. And the role of mail has changed. It's still vitally important, in my opinion. We all remember, the predictions that mail was going to be dead, and we've proven that that's not exactly going to be the case. Yes, volumes have dropped. So, but what people are realizing is that mail can do some things that those other channels can't. It can break through that clutter. It can get people's attention. There are no filters between you and the customer, like spam folders and junk folders and things like that. So there's some real benefits to using the mail in conjunction with those other channels to help to get that message across. I was just talking to a customer last week that it was getting into mail for the first time, and they had built their business on SMS and email, and they were unhappy with their open rates and their unsubscribe rates, and they needed another way to get the attention of their audience, and they decided direct mail was the way to do it. So there's a lot of interest in how do we do that? How do we get the most bang for our buck that we're going to invest in mail, because it is more expensive. So what I write about a lot in the magazine is how do you make sure that every time you print a piece that's going out in the mail, that it has a good chance of meeting its objective. So that means it's got the right address. It's being mailed at the right time. It got some personalization or some relevance. You segmented your list based upon the factors that are important to your business. Those kinds of things. To make sure that if you're going to spend the money on mail, that you've got a reasonable expectation that you're going to get a benefit that makes that investment worthwhile. So we talk about that a lot. The other things that people are thinking about, postage, always, postage goes up twice a year. Just managing that and figuring out how to best, use the postal system to your advantage without paying more than you should. That's always interesting. AI has been a big topic. When we were at the postal forum, I talked to a lot of people about AI and what kind of different companies were doing with it. Pretty interesting observations there, where it was kind of all over the map. People had, first of all, just different interpretations of what they really called AI. And then different things that people saw that they could use that technology in their business. These were all mail-related businesses. So
Right.
There's definitely some a lot of interest in how that technology is going to evolve and how that's going to affect the way we do things. And so there's plenty of new information coming in what is most people think of as a very mature type of an industry.
Right. Yeah, well, that's the exciting thing about the industry, though, is the technology that's really, you might say, bolted onto it, really, or maybe you might say that the technology really is driving the direction in the industry anymore because of the need and the desire to focus on the things that you're talking about, namely postage expenses and printing expenses. So if we can take that budgeted money and use it in a much more strategic and directed way. To your point about trying to get more bang for your buck, that's what customers are looking to do, and from what I've seen, really take advantage of the omni-channel communication to sort of back up and strengthen the mail piece.
Yeah, and look at all those technologies that enable that. Right, there is just going to the mail production side. There is full color inkjet printing that allows you to personalize the graphics on a piece, or add charts and graphs on your transactional financial documents to help people understand it more. What does that do? Well, it maybe doesn't help you to lower your postage costs, but it might lower the number of calls into customer service with questions about what does this mean on my statement. So there's those kinds of things. There's the technology that we've had for a long time that makes sure that you're getting the right pages in the right envelopes. You're not double stuffing, or you're not mixing pages around like you should. And then there's the intelligent mail barcode that allows you to track those pieces as they go through the mail system, so that if you've got a multi-channel approach, particularly in marketing, you can dovetail on that, and you'll know exactly when that mail piece is scheduled to arrive in the home, and you can shoot off an email or an SMS message that says, "Hey, don't forget to look in your mailbox today because we've got an important offer for you." All those kind of technologies come into play. QR codes that help you to connect the physical mail with the electronic content. All those things are all pretty new. So,
Right.
I've been in this business for a long time, and it never fails to amaze me that there's all this new technology that's coming all the time, and it doesn't look like it's a dead industry to me.
No, not at all. And with the advent of faster, clearer, printing and the ability to bring together the data into variable printing, I think is pretty exciting for sure. In terms of content creation, Mike, what are you seeing, and maybe beyond content creation, artificial intelligence or AI? How is that sort of impacting the landscape a bit, either on your side or the customer side?
Yeah. I've been following the development of AI or content generation facilities for about 3 or 4 years now. And it was horrible to begin with. We had things like article spinners and things like that. They were just horrible. It was pretty much worthless. You could generate garbage out if that's all you wanted to do, but it didn't make any sense, to spend your time doing that. And if you wanted to really make it worthwhile, you spent more time fixing that stuff than it would be to have written it by yourself to begin with. But that technology, like everything else, has evolved, and now it does do a decent job. We use artificial intelligence as a tool, so we're not a place where there's no hands-on and articles just get generated out of thin air and then they get published. But we do use it at times to help us to make an outline, or to summarize content, or to repurpose content from one format to another. For instance, taking blog posts and turn them into a video, or compiling multiple articles out of a white paper or things like that. So in those cases, that kind of technology really helps us to be able to serve more customers, get things out on time, do more for each of our customers as well, because there's just more time to get things done, because it shortens that time frame. So I caution people to hang their head on AI as the solution to their problem. I don't see it as being that, as far as content generation goes, which is my business. But I think it's a good tool for you to use to help you get started. Part of the most difficult thing sometimes is knowing what to write and getting started and getting over that hump. There's an awful lot of people that are trying to create content. That was actually how I got started in this business like 15 years ago. Is I was talking to small businesses in our industry and asking them about how they were letting people know about their products and services. And the answer I kept getting was, well, we're going to do a newsletter, but we got a few issues out. And then when things come up and we didn't get around to it and all those kinds of things. And so AI can help kind of smooth out those bumps in the road, and they'll help you do that. On the production side of mail and customer communications, there's all kinds of exciting ways that AI might play a part. I worked in the service bureau business for 22 years, and one of the things that we would do, of course, is onboarding new customers. We did, matter of fact, we did credit unions where I worked. We had 40 different regional credit unions that we would do, and print all their statements and put them in the mail. And so there was an onboarding process that you had to go through in order to do that. And part of that was taking the print image files that we would get from our customers from the credit unions, and we would have to extract information like the name and address out of there. We would have to count the pages. Sometimes we would need to reformat those documents because the customers didn't like the way that they looked and they wanted things differently, whether we were going to add like highlight color, or we were going to change some headings, or rearrange the page in some way. Well, we had to find all those elements within the page. Now we have software that can actually go through and do that. It can go through your entire print file and find out, identify and tag all those elements that you're interested in. Oh, here's the first line address. Here's the second line address. Oh, look, here's the third line address you didn't even know you had in the file, but we found a record that had some of those. Here's where the account number is. All those kinds of things that you can do, and it can do that in minutes, as opposed to taking several days for a programmer to go through and find all of those details. And hopefully they found all the exceptions. which usually there's a few surprises. At least in my experience, there was always those. So
Right.
that's a great application of the AI technology in the mailing world, that people can use.
I think
Um,
that I think you're absolutely right on what you said about the AI capabilities that are out there. Um, I guess from a risk management standpoint, I get a little nervous when there's a new technology that people just sort of assume is just something they can throw data into, especially when they uh, ask it to look at existing documents that they might have saved somewhere and summarize or do other things like that.
yeah,
So the two cautionary things I always tell folks, among others, about AI is number one, it's not confidential anymore or ever. So
yep,
unless you're using one of the more confidential resources, like Microsoft Copilot, if you're just up there on ChatGPT feeding documents and all of what you're feeding becomes public, it's in the public domain. Wouldn't want to do that, of course. And then intellectual property, number two, is an issue where, let's say that you were trying to think of an idea for a piece of artistic content and you found something you liked that was similar, and you say something to the effect of take that and create something a little bit different. You've got a potential IP problem. So people have to
yep,
be really careful, and it's not to your point, it's not the cure all for everything, but you gotta be careful about how you use it. And we tell companies too, have some policies out there to tell your internal people about what they can do with client work, what they can do with confidential information. Super important, I think.
yeah, yeah. That's true. We use a platform that allows us to segment the content. So, I mean, as I said, all of my clients are in the same business, so there's a lot of uh, potential to cross pollinate there. So we make sure that they're all separate, that we're only doing, one client at a time, and their content is separate from everybody else's. So there's not that urge, but yeah, it takes at least today, it takes a human being to go in there and take a look at what is being generated, taking a look at what those sources are. I can tell you how many times that I would see a reference in an AI generated document, and then I would go to where it said it was, and it's nowhere to be found. So
It's
we
true.
still have those issues, the hallucination issues, and so forth, that you have to be aware of. Um, Another interesting application I thought that I learned about at the Postal Forum for AI was in mail sorters. Usually people, when they get a mail sorter, they set up their sort schemes according to the mail that they've got when they start, and they want to set it up so they can process the most mail with the fewest number of passes, right? Well, that's based on the distribution of the mail that you've got. Are you doing regional mail? Are you doing only a certain state? Or are you doing national mail? All those kinds of things fit into the sorting scheme that you program into the machine. Well, those things change, right? The mail volumes are dropping, so your density on certain zip codes is going to change. You may be, if you're a service provider, you may be acquiring new customers. You may be losing other customers. Maybe your customers have changed the way that they distribute the documents that they're sending you. So there's a possibility that AI can come into play there by constantly analyzing the mail that's going through your machine, and then suggesting when it's time to make a sort scheme change to improve the efficiency of the mailing operation. So you don't think about stuff like that. I mean, a lot of people, when you say what's AI, they think about content generation and image generation and those kinds of things. But there's all those other things where AI can do some magical things with large volumes of data that humans either couldn't possibly do or would take too long to make it feasible to do.
Right. Yeah, it's an exciting technology. I think we're just scraping the iceberg at this point, but I think it's going to help us continue to be more efficient in the industry for sure. No doubt.
Yep. Yep.
Mike, this is a great discussion. I'm sure that folks would have even more topics to cover with you. Maybe we should do a series on what's new that you're seeing in the trenches, to use your title, of course. This is a great introduction to you and to PMC. Tell folks where they can find you and PMC Content Services.
Yeah, absolutely. The website is pmccontentservices.com. It's Paul, Michael, Charlie, contentservices.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and my handle is PMC Mike. There's a newsletter there that we just started about 6 months ago, called the PMC Content Corner. Some really interesting things there. We've covered AI a lot in that already. That's free. It's just a LinkedIn newsletter. You can subscribe to that if you want, and take a look at what we're doing. And if you know anybody that's maybe struggling with content generation, or felt that they could do things better, we're happy to help them out. We work with hardware companies, software companies, print and mail service providers, some consultants. We've worked with paper companies, envelope companies. We've got a pretty wide range of experience there that comes into play, so we can help our clients know what it is that they should be publishing, and then create that content without having them point us towards resources or edit the materials, to correct things that we got wrong. It's a lot different from hiring a freelance writer that doesn't specialize in our industry.
Much more strategic and much more focused, I'm sure.
Yep.
Well, terrific. Mike, thanks so much again for joining us today. And this has been Mike Porter, who's the president of PMC Content Services. Had a dynamic conversation and a really informative one, so thank you again. And this has been Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions, the host of the Think Factory podcast, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, Chris.